Hey there! In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to cable without a cable needle, a technique I used in and highly recommend for my Avalyn cardigan pattern. I personally learned this technique especially for the sweater and I loved it. It definitely made knitting an all-over texture much more efficient. This specific stitch pattern uses 4 different 1/1 cable crossings, which I will show here, but these same steps can also be applied to larger cables with practice. We'll begin with the right crossing cables, or the 1/1 RCs, which use 2 knit stitches, and I'll work to the first cable now. The general rule of thumb for right crossing cables is that your yarn should be in front of the work before you perform the first step. The first stitch on the needle will be the second stitch worked, or the stitch that would be held on a cable needle if you were using a cable needle. So with the yarn in front, slip the next stitch purlwise. Bring the yarn to the back, knit the next stitch, and then, from the wrong side of the work, insert your left needle into the back of the slip stitch. Then carefully slip the right needle out of both cable stitches, and pinching the base of those stitches so you don't drop them, insert your right needle back into the knitted stitch. And knit the stitch that remains on the left needle. And that is the first 1/1 RC. I'll do a few more in slow motion and one in real time before moving forward. So I've just completed the wrong side row following the right crossing cable row, and it looks good. While you're getting used to the rhythm of the pattern, it's a good idea to check that you didn't accidentally work any left crossing cables or leave anything unworked before moving on to the next row. Now on this next row, we're going to be crossing knit stitches over purl stitches, and it's very easy to identify which cable crossing needs to be done. For example, if you're at a knit stitch, you'll know you need to cross it to the left over the second purl stitch. We'll start with a left purl crossing cable, or a 1/1 LPC, by slipping the first knit stitch purlwise with the yarn in back. The general rule of thumb for left crossing cables is that your yarn should be in back of the work before you perform the first step. So with the yarn in back, slip the next stitch purlwise. Bring the yarn to the front, purl the next stitch, return the yarn to the back, and then from the right side of the work, insert your left needle into the front of the slip stitch, carefully slip the right needle out of both cable stitches, and insert your right needle back into the purl stitch before knitting the stitch that remains on the left needle. There's the completed 1/1 LPC, and the next cable to perform is the right purl crossing cable, or the 1/1 RPC, which we'll know to do because the next stitch on the left needle is a purl stitch. Now to begin, we'll bring the yarn to the front of the work, again because this is a right crossing cable, and slip the next stitch purlwise. bring the yarn to the back, knit the next stitch, and then, from the wrong side of the work, insert your left needle into the back of the slip stitch, carefully slip the right needle out of both cable stitches and insert it into the knitted stitch, and then purl the stitch that remains on the left needle. And our next cable is another 1/1 LPC. I'll do a few more pairs of these cables in slow motion before we move on. So here it is again after a wrong side row, and you can see that everything was crossed properly. You can also see by this point that it's very easy to tell what row you are on in the stitch pattern and whether your stitches need to be crossed to the right or to the left. On the next row, we'll work the left crossing cables, or the 1/1 LCs, and I'll work toward the first cable. And once again, because this is a left crossing cable, you'll bring your yarn to the back. Now slip the next stitch purlwise, knit the next stitch, and from the right side of the work, insert your left needle into the front of the slip stitch, carefully remove the right needle from both cable stitches and insert it back into the knitted stitch, and knit the stitch that remains on the left needle. And there you have it. I'll do a few more in slow motion before we conclude. Alright, here's the completed left crossing cable row, and you can see how holding the yarn in the back of the work and picking up the slip stitch from the right side created a different look from the 1-1 RC. As you can see, cabling without a cable needle is an awesome skill to have in your toolkit. It'll save you time and keep you on your toes every step of the way. I hope this video has been helpful and that you enjoy using this technique. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you.